Oh, it's like starting an old car. All right. Here we go.
Gotta push start it.
Here we go. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Joining me to discuss a few of the more interesting stories affecting photographers this week, I'm joined by Mr. Martin Bailey from Martin Bailey Photography. Hey Martin, how's it going?
I'm doing great, thanks. How's things with you?
Things are going great. You know, I'm really excited to have another voice on the show. It is Mr. Mike, a.k.a. Sharky James, from the Petapixel Photography Podcast. Mr. Sharky, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks so much, Frederick. It's a dream come true. Where do I go from here?
I feel like you've already been on the show. You've actually been... Petapixel has been part of TWiP unknowingly for several years, because we're always like saying, courtesy our friends at Petapixel, this story, and then we talk about the story. You guys break the news, and then it's kind of like you're the bird, and you chew up the food and then regurgitate it into our mouths.
Listen, I'm the new guy at Petapixel. I've only been over there since September, but I tell you, Michael Zhang has created something amazing. He's a young guy, fairly young guy, and 6 million readers a month
Love it.
visit Petapixel. That just blows my mind.
I love it. I love it. It's great. I mean, I love what's happening in the photography space in terms of like all these, the podcasts, the blogs, the educational resources, like Susan Stripling and the wedding school thing launched, and creative, all these different things are out there, and it's like this amorphous blob that keeps changing. You know, Linda being absorbed and Kelby changing, and it's just like all this stuff. It's never boring, is it? It's never boring.
Never.
All right.
It's only going to get more exciting.
It's going to get more exciting.
We're going to have ISO 6 million someday. I can feel it. It's coming from Nikon.
Please no.
And it's going to look like a digital snowstorm, too.
You'll be able to see into other dimensions and into the future.
The great blizzard of Nikon D6.
Don't get me started on the Nikon stuff. You know, the slow-moving machine that is Nikon. Although I have something good to say about Nikon in this show, and I've got money set aside to give to Nikon, and I'm going to explain why later in the show. How about that for a teaser?
They come out with another stainless steel hot shoe cover. they had that in the leather one. I don't know.
No, it's gold plated. This one's gold
nice.
Plated, you know, gold's a great conductor. Like, guys, let's jump into the stories of the week. We got a lot to talk about. First up is GoPro. So GoPro did a couple things this week. First of all, as we record this, I think NAB 2016 kicked off today. It's Monday, the 18th of April, and they announced a new 360-degree video rig that is, let's see, it's a 6-camera. They call it the Omni rig. They announced the GoPro VR channel and a live streaming or a live VR streaming platform called Live VR. All that was announced today. So this is interesting from a couple of standpoints. We talked a couple of weeks ago about GoPro in terms of being kind of beleaguered and what's next. And I think what I said was, once you buy a GoPro, you know, and they come out with the next one, you probably haven't got your money's worth out of the first one. Why do you want to upgrade? It's not like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera where you're like, oh, now it does this, I need to get it. An action camera is an action camera. So, Mr. James, Sharky James, I'm going to throw it to you first. GoPro, are they grasping for straws, or is this a viable business direction for the company?
Listen, the GoPro stock has dove more than Greg Louganis, right? It's been horrible.
Don't hold back your feelings on the show, man. I mean, come on. Hey, I know you're shy, but just let it go. Come on.
Facts are facts. They can't sue me for the truth. It was, what, 88 at one point, and now it's down around 13 and a half or so.
Yahoo should buy them.
Listen, we all have GoPros, right? And that's part of the problem. Everyone's got a GoPro.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they've got these new products coming out, this Omni, right, which you need 6 GoPros for. Who's got 6 GoPros? Who's going to buy 6 GoPros? I mean, if that's part of the business model that you need, here's what we can do to make money. We need to get everyone to buy 5 more GoPros, and then this like $1,500 or whatever it is device.
I'm right in line with you. $5,000. No, it's $5,000 for the unit, the mount plus the cameras. The cameras alone roughly come out to about $3,000. And they're taking pre-orders. So and you need 6 Hero 4 cameras to fit into this rig. There's so much that I want to say about, because I'm excited about this video 360 space. I got one of those Theta S's, and I've been using that thing all over the place. I love it, although the quality's not there yet for professional use, but it gives you a taste of what's to come. Martin, when you saw this, is this is this something that made you say, okay, I need to carve out some budget to get this thing? $5,000 is a drop in the bucket. What'd you think?
You know, I would probably just go, if I wanted to do something like this, I would probably go for something like the Theta, the S that you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I almost pulled the trigger on that when we spoke. I think it was the end of last year or January, when I did run out and buy the new handheld. I forget the name of it. The thing from the Phantom people.
Oh, the DJI Osmo.
Yeah.
Which they just updated, by the way.
I ran out the next day after seeing you do the gimbal thing here. I ran out the next day and dropped almost $1,000 on that baby.
Yeah.
But I looked at the Theta, and for me, I mean, you have one. You could probably comment on this, but for me, it's cool. It's nice and gimmicky. But you need special software or a special viewer to be able to view the content.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Well, if I had the guy in the store check this, and maybe he was wrong, but he said that there was no way. Say I go out, I'm sitting there, and I take a complete 360-degree video of something that we're doing, and then I want to just take out, like, make a frame within the video. Like, for example, I'm looking through a normal camera, but then I can actually, after the event, go through and get the just cut out a normal sort of a 1080p or whatever video and timeline it. You know, go through and actually tell it which parts of the video I want to do, and I can't export that as a regular video.
No.
And for me, I mean, that would be what I would want to do. I would like to capture it all, and then go through and sort of choreograph a path through that video.
You know, it's funny you say that, and that's a wish of mine too. But when you read through the spec on YouTube, or the YouTube player spec, because there's a special player that's instantiated when it detects the metadata for a 360-degree video. In that spec, it's already designed, the code is in there for you to do what you're talking about, so that you can have it be pointing in a certain direction and meander through the scene, you know, ad nauseum. The problem is the software to do it isn't here yet. So
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
it's leading edge, but you know, the videos itself, it's a process to go from the Theta to the finished video on YouTube, and there's a couple of little, you know, intelligence hurdles that you have to do in order to get in there. But once you figure out the process and you do it once and you figure out where the pitfalls are, you can do it over and over again. I don't know, Sharky. What about you, man? What do you think about this stuff?
I mean, are they banking on this saving the company, or I don't know if they're even in the position where they're that close to being out of business or anything. But what I want to know is, where's that Karma drone? And when it comes, I mean, we right? Remember, you're looking like, oh yeah, they remember, you know, the Karma drone they announced a while ago. And when it comes out, is it going to have the features that they talked about a while ago, which are now going to be, you know, old features? It's like last year's model, or what are they going to do? Are they going to?
I'm thinking maybe that was abandoned. Maybe that was just, you know, hey, we should do this, and the CEO, you know, saying, hey, this is where we're going because drones are hot right now, and maybe this. We can grab some mind share and make people think we're relevant by saying that we're moving into drones. And then, what was it, 2 weeks ago, DJI issued a press release explaining all of their patents and who they were litigating against. It's like they built this wall, no political inferences intended, but they built this wall that if you want to move into the drone space, they kind of hold the keys to it right now. So, I don't know.
I mean, look what Lytro has done. You know, they did a hard pivot. I mean, they pivoted completely the opposite direction, and that, I think, was the right thing to do. I think they're really on track because those Lytro cameras were horrible. Yeah. No one wanted them. Right. You know, cool technology, but just come on, it just wasn't ready for prime time.
I want to think the Lytro cameras. I want to say, in the company's defense, that maybe they just duped all of us, and they never intended on releasing a consumer product. That was to raise money and prove that the light field technology was viable, and have people that purchased that not so cool camera fund the company so they could stay in operation while they were building this gazillion-dollar targeted at Hollywood, operation. So that's, I mean, in retrospect, that's what it seems like they were doing. When you're in the eye of the storm, it seemed a little weird that, you want us to use this camera.
If that's true, Frederick, that is evil genius right there.
It's brilliant.
Evil genius.
I say the glass is half full. Martin,
Yeah.
what do you think? I know we're talking about GoPro, but Lytro, we talked about them last week on the show. Do you think that move was strategic to move into the ultra out of reach of amateurs and into the reach of people with $1 million budgets? Was that planned or was it accidental and serendipitous?
I would say it was probably the case of steering a very big ship, or a relatively small ship, but a ship all the same, and realizing that people aren't quite jumping into the technology that they were hoping to sell millions of. I mean, I don't know how many they've sold, but I really, again, I like the idea of the light field technology. I've looked at the cameras, but then when even with their latest like consumer version camera, the image quality really just isn't there for someone that wants to shoot a quality, something that you could actually print or you could really consider, dare I say, fine art. Right. It's just not going to happen with that camera. They don't have the resolution. So what they're doing is for me, I mean, it seems like a natural extension, but only when you consider that they were standing on the bow of a ship thinking, okay, there's an iceberg coming. Do we get out of the way, or do we just hit it and sink? Yeah. I think that they've done a bit of ship steering, which is good. Good on them.
Listen, they were on the ship and they look back and they're like, "This is some ship."
I knew you were going to say that. You couldn't let it go, could you?
had
I thought you were going to say we're in deep ship at this point.
I was going to, like the old Kmart commercial. I ship. What did they say? I shipped my pants.
I don't remember that. I do not remember that.
Oh, you're gonna have to. Everyone's going to YouTube after the show. Check that out.
Hey, keep it clean. I want to keep my clean tag for this episode, please.
You get banned from all of India and other countries if you have just one episode that's not clean.
Really? All right, guys. So GoPro. I think. If you do the comparison between Lytro and GoPro, if in fact Lytro's move was not planned, then it's a brilliant management move to say, okay, let's pivot, like Sharky's saying, let's pivot in that direction and go after this market because clearly this one's not working. Bravo to them. Is GoPro's pivot into VR, is that the next thing? Because that's putting, first of all, Lytro has intellectual property around the light field technology, which is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome, especially when you apply it to video. VR is open, and anybody can do it, and and they're coming in kind of late to the game. Do you think it's going to save the company?
Just look, they're late to the game on the drone thing, if we ever see that.
Right.
And I think they're wanting people to use their existing devices. Like I said, everyone's got a GoPro that's going to want one. You've already got one. The next one out isn't that much better. So they're thinking of new ways for you to use their product, which is smart, but not if you have to spend $7,000, $5,000, or whatever for it. So they're obviously going for a whole different customer. And can they scale that to the point where they can make a profit and make a good chunk of change?
I think part of the I would have hated to be in the company and saw the whiteboard. What was it, a couple of years ago when DJI said, you know what, we're gonna make our own cameras. We're gonna make our own cameras and control the whole thing instead of making cameras they're gonna hold the GoPros.
They said, "Oh, ship."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't know. I mean, I'm rooting for GoPro. I want to see them survive because the more the merrier in this space. Because if GoPro goes away, who's gonna take this place? Sony has the Action Cam, right? So that's kind of their answer to GoPro, but there's a huge ecosystem out there right now that use GoPro cameras, mounts, and all sorts of things out there that are specifically designed for the GoPro Hero Series cameras. What's going to happen? Like, is this an opportunity for another company to jump in and say, hey, we're making GoPros and they're so much cheaper and they fit everything that you've bought for the Hero 4 already? Have at it. I don't know. Martin, what do you think? What's the move? Again, armchair quarterback. You're the CEO of GoPro. What do you do? What's your move right now? Is it VR or is it something else?
It's really difficult to say, and I look at the TV, I look at the various videos around the world, and there's a lot of people creating quite compelling content with the GoPro.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, everyone has them. I've got 2 in the room next to me. They're sitting in a box, and I opened one recently, and there was like all rust and gunk coming out of the hinge because I hadn't opened it for that long.
Not good.
I think maybe the last time I used it, it was dunked in a pool of monkey poo at the Snow Monkeys.
Wow.
But actually, no, it was water.
You and those visuals, man, you kill me. And they also, you can see, Sharky Martin is the only person that comes on TWiP that can say monkey poo and have it sound elegant.
I can't even listen. I think I'm a fairly funny guy. I can't even think of how to insert monkey poo into any conversation other than referencing what you just said.
You just did.
So there's the thing is that a lot of people own them. I would say there's only a very small fraction of people that are making really compelling video with the GoPros. I think everyone else has one because they're cool and they make maybe a few things that work well. And I would imagine that the same thing's going to happen with this VR stuff. There will be people. VR's going to be big, and in some ways, I mean, we talked on a show. I think the one that I hosted while you were away, Frederick. We talked about VR and how it can be a compelling educational, or give people an experience of being in a place to help relay a strong message.
Right.
I think that VR is going to be big in a number of ways. And I think that GoPro, if they've got something here, if you're producing something, you've got a budget and you're producing something that needs some really good quality stuff. If the quality's there, then and Color, the company KOLOR, the company that they bought or tied up with, they make some pretty mean software for stitching stuff together. Yeah. So if the quality's there, I think that it could be one of these technologies that does help to bring them around. But I can't see them putting one in, where everyone's got a GoPro now. I don't think everyone's going to have a GoPro VR at $5,000. But when you look at it on the scheme of things, $5,000 or so, or probably $10,000, $20,000 to get 3 or 4 of these systems and use them in various places. There are going to be companies that buy it. Just not in the numbers that they're buying the regular GoPros at this point.
It's going to be a much smaller company, which leads me to think that GoPro is becoming a tasty Scooby snack for some larger company to acquire. Apple, you think? Really?
Here's what I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, they have enough money as
I don't know,
right?
who would it be? Maybe Nikon or somebody to remain relevant. I don't know.
Here's what I don't understand. Okay, the VR technology is cool. We're all around the same age, so I don't want to be like get off my lawn, kids, kind of thing. But everyone's got cell phones with them, right? How many of these VR headsets or whatever, as cool as they are you going to sell? Teens aren't going to be bringing their phone and their VR headset. So this is something you're going to be using at home, right? So this is going to be like a video game kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I think VR, we've been hearing it since the early days of the internet, right? Vermal, VRML. It never really took off.
Never.
Do people want to be immersed
VR,
in these things?
VRML, all that stuff, right?
My kids are in their phones. I say in their phones because it's like there's like a mind meld right there, right? Where they're like in the phone using Instagram and they're using Snapchat all day. Are they going to have these headsets on and be like detached from life like all day long? It's going to be something like, it's like an Instax camera. The number one thing selling on Amazon this holiday season, you take some pictures, they're expensive, the film's expensive, you put it away till the next occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, or it finds a niche audience like, I don't know, like disabled people, that can't move around. They can put on these like Martin was saying, you can put on these headsets and then get to places that you wouldn't ordinarily been able to get to, or aircraft. I would love to have one of these things on an aircraft in first class. Not that I fly first class, but imagine being able to sit there, put your headset on, and just completely zone out and be in a different environment while you're making your way to visit Martin in Tokyo or something.
Look, it's just like with apps. People are going to make really cool things for these that we haven't even thought about yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And if we thought about it, we wouldn't be here right now. We'd be counting our millions, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was hinting at, though, and that's what we were talking about on that earlier show. Is that I totally agree, Sharky. People, those headsets, they're a gimmick, and I don't think that people are going to, Microsoft or whoever. There's a number of people that are bringing them to market. I think it's like 3D TV. I mean, we've been trying 3D movies since the '60s, and it's never really taken off. I bought a new TV last year. I was looking for ones that didn't have 3D. I don't need it. I don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are situations when I think that it can be used, and I think education and taking people into an environment, like Frederick just said, someone that maybe can't get around, give them the opportunity to still experience what it feels like to climb Mount Fuji or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's that sort of thing that I think it's got applications for. And that's why I'm thinking that it's going to be the bigger companies. It's not going to be your hobbyist that's making those sort. It could be, you know, GoPros gets into the hands of lots of people. The cheap one GoPro on your chest and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
So I think it's there, but I think it's going to be used for very specific reasons and not necessarily to put a headset on every person on the planet and make them all live somewhere else.
You mean kind of like Google Glass, right? That was
Right.
that was a problem. Everyone's going to be riding a Segway wearing Google Glass, and we're all going to be disconnected and seeing, augmented reality stats above everyone's head as we ride through the city, right?
So where does that leave GoPro? Are they going to be the ones to do it, or is someone else going to be integrating their cameras into a third-party solution? Who knows?
Who knows?
It'll happen when
I want to draw a line.
comes.
Let's draw a line in the sand here. So VR, we're throwing around the term VR, and this bugs me because virtual reality versus 360-degree video. They're two separate things. It's not VR when you're in an immersive 360 because it's linear. Video you're just watching. You're inside a bubble. The video's being projected on the walls of the bubble of which you're inside of that you can look around. VR is an immersive interactive environment like a holodeck or Second Life or something like that, right?
And then there's augmented reality on top of all that.
Yeah. So VR. So I don't know. I think GoPro may have, let's say, misbranded GoPro VR, their GoPro VR channel, because it's not virtual reality. It's 360-degree video is what they're selling. So,
that guy just got fired right now because of you.
Sorry, guy.
The guy that named it GoPro VR, gone.
Exactly. It's so sad. I mean,
Good job, Frederick.
It just burns me. I was like, it's not VR because it confuses me. I'm like, oh, a new VR thing? Oh, it's going to be rendering 3D and I can walk through the scene and pick up things virtually? No.
Nope.
It's not that. It's video. It's video that's in 360. So I don't know. So here's the other piece of this story. So, and I'm reading this from our show notes. So after GoPro announced disappointing financial results for the December quarter, founder and CEO Nick Woodman in February discussed how the company wants to shift from being a sole hardware company or a hardware manufacturer to being a web-based platform for extreme sports and other games. Now, where is the market in that? I mean, how do you go from selling these expensive hardware tools to being a platform? And if you build the most gorgeous 360-degree video, not VR platform on the planet, it's a warehouse. It's the Google of VR or 360-degree video. Who's the audience for that? Like Sharky, you just said, like, it's a niche of people that will want to buy these massive headsets to put on and immerse themselves, especially in early 2016 or mid 2016. Who's gonna, like, how do you stay alive with that? And what's the business model? Sharky, what do you think?
I think your scenario of being on the ship of, let's say, the Titanic and an iceberg coming in the distance could very well be true. I mean,
it sounds like investor Jedi mind trick to me. So that's what it sounds like.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on.
These aren't the numbers you're looking for, investors.
Karma drone? What karma drone?
Exactly. I don't know. I mean, I want, like I said, I want them to succeed, but I'm like, as a consumer, and again, armchair quarterback, I don't know all the dynamics and market forces going on here, but from my perch, it just seems a little, hey.
I don't see where the business is here.
Right.
Where are they going to make the money?
I don't know. But I am bullish on the whole 360-degree video space, though. I think that's awesome. And I think the Theta S, which I own one of, although the quality of it isn't up to par for folks like, advanced amateurs and pros like us, I think it is a good way to learn the technology and understand what the capabilities are for a relatively low price, considering the price of some of these cameras that are these 360 pro level 360-degree cameras that are out there. Like Alex Lindsay, what is it, the Ozo, I think it is? Alex Lindsay sent me a text the other day saying, hey, I just got an Ozo, whatever. And I'm like, oh, cool, a 360-degree camera. Can I check it out? So I Google that thing, $60,000.
Now, here's my question to you, Frederick. How many Alexes is that?
The 60,000, that's 60 Alexes.
See, you can tell I listened to the show.
Yes, that is 60 Alexes, and
wow.
it is out of reach for most mortals. I just want to say that. So that represents the Alex end of the spectrum. The Theta S is, on the far left. I want to be somewhere in the middle, which I'm hoping story number 2 will address, which is Nikon's all-seeing 360-degree camera. They're calling it the KeyMission 360. So from the specs, it's kind of like what GoPro is built hobbling together existing technology in one little elegant, waterproof, rugged camera that shoots, what does it say, 4K? It shoots 4K ultra video, which is one of my problems with the Theta S. They claim 1080, but it's 1080 with 2 spheres in the middle of a 1080 frame. So they claim 4K, so I want to see what that looks like. This thing is waterproof to 100 feet and built to handle, like, kicking around and dust and all that stuff. So it looks pretty interesting. We don't have pricing yet on this, but I gotta imagine it's probably, looking at it, it can't be more than $5,000, which is
definitely not.
Which is what GoPro has. Sharky, what do you think? Is this compelling to you, the Nikon KeyMission 360?
It's getting there. I think, like you said, we don't know how much this thing's going to cost, but I'm thinking it's not going to be anywhere near $5,000. Worst name ever for a product.
KeyMission 360.
KeyMission 360. I mean, but then again, when the iPad came out, everyone thought that was horrible. So maybe it'll grow on us. Yeah. But like you said, we don't see a whole lot of, sorry, listen, I own more Nikon gear than I own Sony gear, and I'm a huge Sony fanboy. Mm-hmm. But Nikon, as well as Canon, they don't innovate like Sony is and some of the other companies. They just don't. I mean, the 80D came out, and it wasn't really that much more impressive than the 70D on the Canon side. Yeah. And then I own a Nikon D7200, which is a great camera, but it wasn't that much of an upgrade over the 7100. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue, this KeyMission 360 comes out, and it's like, whoa! I had to check. Nikon did this? Like, they're finally doing something. Like I told you, they had the leather and the stainless steel hot shoe covers there. It's like, what? This you're not making money hand over fist. You don't do that. You don't.
It just made me think of like some marketing guy in there that's like, please let me just push this through. I did all the financials and the projections. This could work. Just give me a chance. There's one guy with a rogue team inside of Nikon fighting the suits to get this thing out. And, they're like, okay, we like this if we get to name it. We're going to name it the KeyMission. He's like, no, we should name it the Nikon 360. No, it needs to be the KeyMission 360 or nothing.
Maybe they named it in Japanese and then did a Google Translate on it or something, and it came out to KeyMission 360. I don't know. What do you think, Martin?
I don't know.
I would say that it probably doesn't. The name would sound the same in both languages. It probably would be said in the same thing. It would be probably KeyMission. It wouldn't be that different. But it wouldn't mean anything. It would just have to be given its meaning by all of the marketing gumph that gets that surrounds the release and stuff.
Yeah, but what do you think about this product? If a company like Ricoh throws their weight behind the Theta S, which is a kind of a point and shoot consumer level 360, then a giant company like Nikon, which has a Harvard pedigree in photography, consumer electronics, says, okay, we're going to make a pro level camera. Does that validate the space? Is the 360 space now ripe for professionals to say, okay, now I need to start considering this as a viable product that I can offer to my consumers? Sharky, what do you guys think?
We're going to have to see. I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot out of this yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so, you see the Nikon ambassadors using it and such, but until we actually use it, I mean, like, the DJI Osmo, which you have and stuff, and a lot of other products, that you see the marketing videos and everything, and these are the best of the best in the world that are shooting these, and then you get it. It's like those memes you see on the internet, it's like how I think I look when I run versus how I actually look when I run, that kind of thing. So we'll see, like, once we actually get these, is it going to be horrible, or are we going to regret however much money we spent on the KeyMission 360? Yes. It's great, though, for, it's a ball shape, so I guess you could have some fun throwing it when you get frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah.
who knows? You just don't know yet. These things are all emerging. I like that Nikon is doing something out of the box here. They've got a great camera coming, the D500. That's, I think, a really compelling camera. So they're starting to do some things, you know, mirrorless and everything too. They need to get in on, but that's a whole other topic for another day.
I don't know. I mean, this is a good panel to be talking about this. Martin, does this, like, you're a working pro, you lead workshops, you don't have a whole lot of time to be experimenting with new things and, you know, testing things in the field and all that. When you see something like the KeyMission 360 or any of these other cameras, like last week we were talking about, you know, like we said, Lytro, and they're moving into this space and all that. Is it time for you to start making this leap, or conversely, you as someone, like I see the giant printer behind you, are you a purist and you're like, you know what, 2 dimensions in this XY, that's all I care about? You know, what do you think?
You know, I think that there's still a lot of that, and I think that that's what's going to happen with a lot of photographers, is that people will think it's a cool technology, they'll want to give it a try, but I think it's something else. I don't think it's the sort of thing that a photographer per se is going to just want to jump into and start to add to their toolbox. The reason, I mean, the first thing I think about this is not how I can make art with it. It's how I can use it perhaps to make a marketing video to sell more tour seats.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think of it as a tool to do something else, not so much what I you know, to augment what I'm currently doing, or even instead of what I'm currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the tools that we have and all of these video things, like I say, I bought GoPros and I shot a whole season of videos. I did 2 Japan winter tours, I did Namibia, and I did a whole bunch of stuff with the GoPro. And all of the footage is still sitting on my hard drive. I've never released any of it because it's not what I do. It's not important to me. But I think that there are people that it's going to be important to. If you need to create a 360-degree, I think that a lot of it, I mean, we do need to make the distinction of 360-degree video or photography and VR.
Right.
But I think that it's one's a means to another. You know, in some ways, if you're going to create something in VR, you need to be able to shoot that footage. And so these tools are going to be put out there, and as the demand for VR or for 360-degree footage increases, people are going to jump into that space and say, okay, now what do I need to buy? Or they're going to do it as a pet project initially and create something cool and attract a customer that's going to help them to jump into the space that are a lot deeper. Mm-hmm. So I think that there are people that are going to use it, and I think that there's going to be some cool footage coming out. There's already got to be people that are starting to work what we've got on the market at the moment. But I think that it's going to be a very specific. I need to do this. This is what I need to do, or this is what I want to do. The dream or the idea comes first, and then someone selects the technology.
Right.
And I think that, like Sharky says, it's great that Nikon have finally sort of in a different way started to innovate something. It's not new, but it looks like good solid technology, and I think that it's probably going to sell for them.
You hit it right on the head, man, because and I've been preaching this a lot lately, especially with all these new things showing up, is when we have this gear lust. So when we get these new tools, a lot of the stuff that you see first on the web and otherwise is a demonstration of the technology. It's not art that happens to be using that particular technology to tell a story or express an artistic vision. It is, hey, I got this new toy. Let me show you what it can do, and I'll make something that's completely irrelevant to anything with no story, but I'm going to show you the power of this. Sharky, what do you think?
But something Martin said also brings a point up for me, is how much processing power in a computer you need to have, and how much hard drive, storage space you're going to need when you're dealing with 360. What are you going to need? So just the entry point to get in on this stuff is not only going to need a $5,000 device or $500 device if that's what this thing costs. You're going to need more hard drive space, and like Martin said, so you're going to have this footage that's going to sit on your hard drive. And you're going to have a lot of it now, and then just dealing with it, and then how do you process it? There's just a whole ecosystem that has to come around these products, so you have to be all in. It's not something like a drone, like that upcoming or not Karma drone, where it's like something really cool. It's like, this thing has more limited usefulness. It's like, are you going to be shooting, if you got a lens baby for your camera, you wouldn't shoot all your portraits with that. At least I hope not, right?
Right.
So you've got this KeyMission 360. You're going to use it a little bit, but heaven forbid you're not going to shoot everything with it. So if you're not shooting a lot with it, does it justify spending $500 or $5,000 for these things? What are you going to do with these things?
Yeah.
And so the amount of people that are actually going to be using them is a lot less. I think these are going to be more the higher end pros. You're going to see this in some kind of proof of concept kind of thing, virtual tours, all of that.
This is always the way it is, though. I mean, it's the way, right? So it's called technology. Something new shows up, and then it's overpriced, and there's all the early adopters, and they, do whatever they're going to do with it, and then the price drops down into the mainstream, and then we start getting mainstream adoption. It happened with mirrorless cameras. It happened with printers. It happened. Everything, is the same exact way, and we're all old enough to have seen the patterns and the chaos over time as new technologies get introduced, and then they trickle their way down into the masses. But I'm wondering, is this, like Sharky, like you were saying, we've seen this promise of 360-degree video and VR, as separate entities for 2 decades now, right? So is it now finally time for these technologies to come and hit because we have smartphones and all these different ways to consume the content? Was that the linchpin for making these technologies viable, or is it another non-starter?
I don't know. Look, I hate to even bring up this point. We're going down the rabbit hole here, but look at the home video market in the 80s.
Yeah.
What kicked off? What industry kicked off the home video market?
Pornography. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I hate to say, go look and see what the adult business is doing. That's not a commandment, everybody, to go do that. But, they're going to adopt it first, and, right? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
You're right. You're right. 360 degree.
We don't even want to go there.
Oh, geez. Waterproof VR helmets.
But there are markets for these things, I guess.
Yeah. But, hey, whatever. I mean, consumers are consumers. Depending on whatever they want, that's what they want, and they're going to pay money. In the end, it's a potential customer or a lead converting into a potential customer, converting into a customer,
Exactly.
And the transaction that happens in there. Who cares what they're buying? If it's porn, if it's whatever. I mean, it's the market is the market, and if the porn market is what's going to drive this into mainstream adoption, then it drives it into mainstream adoption. My question is it at that level where people will care? I mean, or is it going to go the route of the Segway and Google Glass and all these other promising, amazing technologies that seemed like they should have taken off but didn't? So do we care about 360?
I'm saying right here, right now. Like you said, there's video game aspects. There's accessibility for those who have visual problems or whatever. There's going to be ways. There's going to be industries that will adopt this, but widespread, I don't think it's going to happen. Who's going to be having a headset on them all day to see this?
Yeah,
right.
It's going to take something like Martin. It's going to take something like an exclusive to get people in. Like, I know Martin's a huge Kanye West fan, so it's going to take Kanye West releasing his next video or the next 3 Star Wars movies being shot exclusively in 360 video, and the only way you can see them are in theaters that are equipped with 360 VR or video headsets or something, right? So it'll take a kickstart like that or a shot in the arm. Sorry, Martin, for outing you on your Kanye lust.
He's more of a Taylor Swift fan.
Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber, I know, something like that. All right, guys. After the break, we're going to talk about some scientists in Washington that have teamed up with Microsoft to develop a way to store images in DNA. All right, guys, we are back. We're going to talk about some scientists that are using DNA to store photographs. So, scientists in Washington have teamed up with Microsoft to develop a method for storing, wait for it, 10 terabytes of data in a tiny smear of DNA. So they're using a technology or a process called Huffman coding, which is fairly normal. It's a normal lossless data compression algorithm, but they're able to, what they did was researchers in Washington or the University of Washington have figured out how to take digital files and convert them into strings of DNA that then they can easily read back. So tying this into our first two stories about VR and 360 video and all this other stuff that's coming out, Sharky, you mentioned, how do you store all this stuff? Is this how you store all this stuff? You store it on a cell? Like what?
This just shows you my thinking here. I just imagine the guys over at Crash Plan all spitting in a jar and storing everyone's files on that. So it's like, you've got your daily backup, and some guy over at Crash Plan is spitting, or whoever you have as a sponsor here, spits in a jar or something. I mean, like, how does this materialize? How is this actually going to be a thing?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes these stories are because people figured something out because they could. There's not a necessary applicable or even realistic process. But they're saying in the story, it says they can go much further. They can store video, audio, or any kind of digital file. They released a press release that says it could be possible to shrink the space needed to store digital data today that would fill a Walmart supercenter down to the size of a sugar cube. Martin, I mean, it seems fantastic, but I remember when I was growing up, my dad, had this IBM PC with a smart card in it. It had like a 10 gigabyte drive that you put in your computer, and he used to brag to me saying, "Yeah, see that thing? I could store the entire Library of Congress on that drive," which you could, but now we can do it, on our cell phones. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think? Is this viable technology?
I think that last statement, that last paragraph that you read out there, that's got it. I mean, it's not necessarily going to be. Maybe they are thinking, okay, we can develop a way that if you run out of memory, you can just stick your finger in a port on the computer and store it in your arm. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's part of it. But I think that the other thing is that if they can get enough. If they can shrink down storage space, because I mean, at the moment we try to store everything in ones and zeros, and that's why the file size is large, and that's why we have to have big storage systems. If they really can come up with a huge storage system that's really small, then that if that's what it leads to, not necessarily the DNA thing, but using the algorithms to figure out how to totally change how we store data. That could be big. I mean, then we could all have like a 4 terabyte chip in our camera. I mean, the ones that we use now, the CF cards or even the little XC cards, these things are getting tiny anyway, and the amount that you can store on them is getting bigger each year. We could, if these things are so small, we could store everything all of our photos, videos, and everything on a tiny little drive. Make backups really easy. If it comes to shrinking things down and getting more data onto smaller devices, then that's probably the biggest benefit that I can see here.
It's a scary future. Sharky, is that a future you want to live in, where you could get a tattoo, and with that tattoo comes all 25 terabytes of data?
Not so much, but you know what? To bring things back around, you can store all your data in monkey poo.
Oh, God, yeah. Because it turns out there's DNA in there as well, right?
It was about to happen. I don't know. I don't know how this thing actually materializes someday, but smarter guys than us are thinking about it, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, if it does materialize, it could be the missing link, to continue the monkey references. It could be the missing link.
That was a good one.
Thank you very much. To all this data that we're going to be creating, because if we're creating these 360-degree immersive video sequences, they're going to take a lot of data. Like the story that we talked about last week was Lytro. They have one of these devices out or a camera out that comes with its own server. So
R2D2 you referred to it as.
Yeah, exactly. It comes with R2D2 or some droid that it plugs into to handle the offloading and the processing power needed to crunch all this data. If that could be miniaturized using this kind of technology, and boom, you could have R2D2 on a little thing that is in your phone or something, and all you need is a drop of blood or something to store everything on. It could be interesting. I don't know. I'm reaching. We'll never see this, by the way. So these are your great grandkids. They're going to be like, wow, they actually stored things on SD cards. Wow, yeah.
that's going to be it. That's what I think it is. It's all about shrinking stuff down and
Yeah.
you know.
All I gotta say is the singularity is near, gentlemen. Just beware. Sentience in computers is on the way, and Skynet will be online in 2018. So
That's the scariest thing. I mean, these things could be happening. You know, there's all talk of defense programs built on artificial intelligence. I mean, that's like, okay, let's make a movie about the really bad things that could happen to the human race, and then let's see how we can make it really happen.
yeah,
Is that what?
yeah, science fiction.
Anyway, that's a huge digression, but
I mean, you know, you think about it. So when you talk about drones on the show, and you've seen those videos on YouTube of, you know, these swarms of programmed, synchronized drones that are flying within inches of each other, and then you take that technology and overlay it on all this sentience that's coming.
It's crazy.
You know, it's crazy. It is very crazy. So, but it's exciting, you know. So,
yeah.
And what's to worry about? You know, man has never taken awesome technology and used it for ill means, right?
Never.
Never. We always do awesome things like build windmills and stuff like that. So. That's what we do. That's what we do. All right, guys, let's jump into the picks of the week segment. Remember, your pick can be anything as long as it is related somehow to photography. Sharky James, you're the new kid on the block. What's your pick of the week?
All right, aside from the Petapixel photography podcast
of course.
at petapixel.com/podcast.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to charge you for that, by the way.
Yeah, there was a story that we just did on the podcast this last episode of a photographer on Tenerife, which is in the Canary Islands off the western coast of Africa. It's a Spanish, you know, held property, territory.
Yeah.
And he was trusted with the Canon 1DX Mark II, a pre-release version, and his car was broken into. $34,000 worth of gear was stolen. What he did was back his car up so his tailgate couldn't be opened, backed it up to a concrete bench. And that, to me, that just screams something important is in this car. Oh, hey, there's windows. Let's break it out. 20 seconds, they're in, they're out.
Right.
So what I did I'm a retired photojournalist, and when I would have to keep gear in my car that I didn't bring physically with me and I wanted to be safe, you know, of course you don't want to draw any attention to your car. And a lot of photographers out there have vinyl on their car and say, hey, I'm a photographer. That means, you know, maybe I got some expensive stuff in there.
Right.
So what I did is I used a product from PackSafe, and I've got the older version I'm going to show you here in a second if you're watching on YouTube or on the site. And it's an exomesh that goes around your gear bag. And the one that I have is the older version. They have a newer version. It's called the PackSafe C25L, and there's different sizes. C35L, it's, you know, 25 liters, 35 liters, etc. And it's an overseas company. And so it's an anti-theft camera bag protector, and it goes around your gear. If someone breaks into your car, they're not expecting your gear. Well, first, if they find your gear and they break into the car, it's gone. So if you have an exomesh mesh around it and you've got that locked down to the metal on your car, if they didn't bring tools with them, and they're not going to go break in your car and then come back to the scene of the crime and then break in. Hopefully there's people around. This will help protect your gear. The newer version, the older version I have, the mesh was a little bit wider. They have a newer version, so you can't just reach your hand in there and pull out, you know, camera lenses and such. So I've got the older version. They have a newer version. It goes from like $50 to like $100 or so. I think anything you can do to protect your gear if your car is broken into is great. Insurance is always a great idea, $500-600 a year. If you're like this guy, he lost $34,000 worth of gear, and he's a professional. And Canon's 1DX Mark II that they entrusted with him, a pre-release version, that's out there now. So you gotta protect your gear, and this will definitely help.
That thing looks cool. I wonder if it's TSA approved though. I mean, does it? I guess you could put a lock on there that is.
Yeah.
It's
it
TSA
comes
approved.
It comes with a lock. If you can hear the Velcro and stuff here, it comes with a lock. It's this giant mesh thing.
Oh, look at that.
And it's a whole mesh kind of deal. And I don't see the TSA logo on here, but you put it around your gear, and it expands. Like I said, this is the older version. And then you've got these loops on the end, so you just loop it together and you close it, and then you just put a standard whatever lock. They included a lock, but you could put any kind of lock that you want. So this is, someone breaks into your car, they're off with your gear. At least now you've the thief is like, well, okay, I don't know what to do with that, and I'm not coming back. I'm out of here.
I'm thinking if you got one of those, that would be ideal for leaving your gear in a hotel room in parts unknown. You know, like you travel someplace and you're like, okay, I'm only going to take these 3 lenses or this lens and this body with me, and you leave the rest of your stuff in the room. This would be awesome because typically it won't fit in the safe, right?
Yeah, but don't loop it like a lot to do. Loop it around a chair leg or a table leg that can just be lifted, and there you go. You have to, so if there's, it has to be something metal, some kind of loop or something that you can attach it to. So if you have a car, like I had a Mustang, and so, it was a ragtop too, so that wasn't exactly safe. But in the trunk, there were metal parts of the trunk and the assembly in there, and I would loop it through one side and down to the other. And if anyone got in there, they would, they'd be, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
So you got to protect your gear. And insurance is a good thing, especially if you're professional. You have to build it into your cost of doing business. Otherwise, could you afford to lose $10,000 worth of gear and still be in business and feed your family? If the answer is no.
Yeah, I would say
this
for
is
most
a cheap $100 solution.
I was going to ask you, so it's $100? That's the price?
Yeah,
it's like 69 or something, right?
Yeah, there's it depends on which size you get. Like I said, they're measured in liters, 25L, 35L. I got the biggest one, I think, that they made because I had a lot of gear. It had to fit everything, and so it's, this thing is ginormous. I think I got the 120 or the 140L.
That's like awesome peace of mind, because if you go through all those gyrations to protect your gear and someone steals it, then you can kind of say, you know what, I did everything I could do to stop these people from getting my gear, and they still got it. So maybe they were meant to have it.
Yeah.
At that point, you've done everything you could do. But that is I like that. Cool. That's your first pick of the week on the show, man. How do you feel?
I'm awesome. Like, back, I think it was episode 430 or something, you made me and the podcast your pick of the week. So,
yes, I did.
Right. Yeah. There was nothing else available that week, I guess, and you picked us. So I appreciate it. That
it was
awesome.
A slow week, It was either that or a Snicker bar,
Yeah.
So.
Hey, they have words on them now and sayings.
They do. I know. All right, guys. That's perfect. Thanks, man, for that.
No
Martin Bailey, what is your pick of the week, man?
Yesterday I released a review of a new wide gamut monitor display from BenQ. It's the SW. Oh, there's me. You've just got me up on the screen there.
Inception.
So the monitor itself is they say it's got 99% Adobe RGB, so wide gamut. My tests actually showed that it had wider than that. So they're undercutting themselves on their website, but the BenQ, it's an SW2700PT 27-inch wide gamut display, and honestly, until now, I've never thought of BenQ as being a quality display manufacturer. We used to buy them in my previous life, in my old day job. We used to buy BenQ monitors for our engineers because it was the cheapest thing that we could buy and still be able to see something on the screen. So I always thought of them as a real budget display, but they've entered the you could almost say professional photography market, or the definitely high-end wide gamut display market with this new offering. And I'm looking at it right now. They sent me one to test, and it really is a very, very powerful piece of, well, I was going to say glass. It's not glass, but matte screen. It's got the 99% Adobe RGB gamut. It works really well. There's a few quirks, but the thing is, it's like $630 or something.
Oh, nice.
And comparative displays with similar specs are all 2 to 3, sometimes depending on the maker, 4 times more expensive. So I've just fallen in love with this display. So.
And what's this? It's the one on your right there, right? So what's the size of it? Is it 27 inches?
It's 27 inch. So okay. I've got it sitting next to my iMac screen. They're both 27 inch, both the same resolution. But it's really nice. It's like I say, it's got a matte finish. It's not the glossy. For my iMac, I waited until the 30% less reflective screen to come out before I bought an iMac, and even that, it's still quite glossy. And I get some nasty reflections in this room sometimes. But with this, don't get any reflections. It comes with a hood, It's got the shading hood on there.
Yeah,
They're usually $100 to $200 extra optional things, accessories. It's in the price, So 300, I think it's 360, 300 something dollars, 330. And you can get a hell of a lot of display for very little money, really. I think it's underpriced for what it is. But like I say, there are some areas where you have to mess around with it a little bit. You need your own colorimeter if you're going to do hardware calibration, but you can do hardware calibration. That's something else that you don't see on this class of, or this price of display. So.
And we do have to do a full episode on color. We touched on it a couple of weeks ago, talking about, I think it was called the fallacy of color or chasing color. It was called Chasing Color, the episode Chasing Color. And what I was bringing up was how, if not impossible, it is to get accurate color. And so I want to have you come on and discuss how you can get close to accurate color. And I think accurate color is going to be subjective. Like, your accurate color is going to be different than my accurate color, right? So,
well, yeah, I mean, it all depends. I mean, you can definitely calibrate and get close, but we all see color differently anyway.
Yeah.
I wrote a Craft and Vision photography magazine called The Myth of, I think it was The Myth. Oh no, that was something else. I was talking about basically color calibration. It's for you. It's basically, I mean, the reason that we calibrate our displays, you're the person that benefits the most, because it puts you in a position to be able to adjust and edit and push the pixels around and adjust those sliders in an environment where you can see exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I've, for the first time with this Adobe RGB wide gamut display, I found that I was pushing some of my images too far. It was a while back, but I was moving my sliders around and changing them in such a small color space that I couldn't see what I was doing. And now that I could see it, I was thinking, oh, look what I did there. That was a bit of a mess. Right. And so I think that there's a big difference. Standardizing is not so much for everyone else. If you know that your display is calibrated, then other people that have got calibrated displays are going to be at least part way there. The brightness of the display is different and everything, but it's quite a complex thing. We'd like you say, we could do a whole show on it.
It is. It's very complex, and I think as I recall, the context of that show was Apple's updating of iOS to add that technology or that feature in there where the display goes warmer at night and then goes back to normal in the morning. And my argument was, okay, well, all that work that you did to get your photos looking exactly right it's out the window because now they're warm.
But that sunset is really going to pop now.
Exactly.
And you can always use more warmth, right?
Exactly. So, but that begged the question, just how slippery of a pig it is to be chasing color, because you're never going to grab it because everyone has different rods and cones, and you can never be sure, especially with prints, right? You can never be sure where your final print is going to be viewed. Is it going to be a room with daylight? Is it going to be a room with tungsten? Is it going to be a room with no light? You never know where it's going to be viewed. So trying to get precisely accurate color is somewhat of a fallacy. But Martin, to your point, you can only correct to one standard, and that's you. So once you say, okay, this is what I determine as perfect, and everything I put out is going to be to this standard, then that's your perfect, and everybody else can, deal with it, right? To
a degree, but I mean, if you're using the correct tools that are, the X-Rite tools that I use, they are using the standard, and I make certain settings. I make sure that I select settings for the brightness of my environment, but I actually don't adjust the color in my profiles. You can do that for printing. If I was going to do a show, I could go to the gallery, take a reading of the light levels and the color of the light in the gallery, and print for that gallery. But I never print for a specific light, because I don't, exactly like you're saying, I don't know where my prints are going to go.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't value in calibrating and making your
I
color
think there
accurate.
is. I think there is, but even in the example of that gallery, You know, if you go into that gallery and you measure the light levels and you know exactly what's perfect for every print that you're going to hang in that gallery, presumably you're hanging things in a gallery to sell them. And someone goes in and they say, "Oh, that snow monkey shot will look good in my living room." They buy that snow monkey shot, they hang it in their living room, and now
it looks like monkey poo.
And that's why you don't necessarily want to do that. The example was you could, if you wanted just the gallery to look great, then you could do that.
Yeah.
When I did my last show, I didn't do that because exactly that. I wanted people to be able to buy those prints. Now, you don't necessarily hang the prints that people are going to walk away with. You know, you could create them a standard color one later, and it'd still have a better chance of looking good on their wall. But yeah, I think that there's definitely value in standardizing. But like, you know, the example of the color changing on the iPads, you're not going to be doing your image editing on a computer with those settings in force. You know, you're gonna make sure that you go back to your standard color before you do anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother show. I mean, talking about color calibration on mobile devices, and is that even possible from iOS to iOS device and to Android and to Windows and all that? Can you lock down the color?
You actually can calibrate a iPhone or an iPad. We're using the colorimeters from X-Rite, but to actually use the profile that you create, you have to show your images inside the X-Rite software. So yes, you can do it. It's doable, but it's not system wide, so it doesn't really mean much.
Yeah. So
let's just forget all this and go to the bar or something. Come on, this is too much. This is stressing me out.
Too much math. You know, you guys are getting dangerously close to math, and no one likes.
Just buy Martin's book.
Exactly.
All right?
Yeah, that's a good point, Martin. You have a book on Craft and Vision. What's the name of your book on color?
I've got 3 on there, but the one that I go into a little bit about color management is making the print.
Making the print. And you did a workshop series on that a while back as well, right?
Yeah, well, my Pixels to Pigment workshop is that's a complete color managed workflow. So from capture right through to print.
Are there beers involved in that whole process?
When we do the workshop in person, there are often beers on the Sunday night.
There you go.
You know, I do a weekend workshop. It often ends in beer.
Oh, look at that! All right.
I think it's great that Martin's done all the heavy lifting. You know, you don't have to do any thinking here. Just follow the steps. Read the book. Follow the steps.
Thinking is overrated, man.
It's too much, I tell you.
All right, guys. So I have a pick of the week this week. I don't always have a pick of the week, but I have one this week, and I'm going to share my screen. So my pick of the week is this thing. It's called the Duet display, and I think we may have talked about it on the show. I don't know, maybe last year or so. But I've finally tried it. And what it is, it's a piece of software that you load on your iOS device, and you load another piece of software on your Mac, and it turns your iOS device into another display. Very simple. That's all it does. And it works like a charm. And I tried it because I was thinking, you know, I've got this iPad Pro, and it just generally, for the most part, just sits there depreciating when I'm not using it. So like, okay, how can I put this guy to work somehow so at least I'm getting some use out of it when I'm not reading or doing stuff on it? So I tried to Duet display on it, and it's sitting right next to my Mac right now. It's got, you know, some apps running, you know, or some programs from my main display are on it, and the Mac just sees it as another display. You open the display's preference pane or the settings, and you manage it just like any other display, and it works like a charm. The cool part about it is, normally I'm sitting at my desk here when I'm podcasting, and I'm using my iMac, and I've got all my stuff here. But sometimes I want to be somewhere else. You know, like last week I was in Mexico, so I'm like, okay, I have my MacBook Pro 13-inch, I have my iPad Pro. Now I can sit wherever I am and have 2 displays with this thing, and it's like, I think it was like $10. It's ridiculously cheap to turn your iOS. It could be your phone. It turns whatever device into another display that you can use. I don't know, Martin, have you seen this thing? Have you used it at all?
I don't think it's this. I've used something, I think it was called Air Display.
Yeah.
It was a very similar thing a
But
couple
that
of
was
years ago.
Wi-Fi. I remember Air Display. If I recall correctly, that was Wi-Fi and it worked, but there was this unbearable latency that made it pretty much unusable for me, which is why I took so long to try Duet Display. So Duet Display doesn't work through Wi-Fi. It plugs in your Lightning cable, you plug it into your Mac, and it uses that high-speed transfer to basically give you a third monitor or second monitor instantaneous update of the display. So it just
brilliant.
Yeah, it works like a charm. I love it.
Yeah.
Sharky, have you tried it at all?
I haven't tried it, but like you're saying, you've got this iPad Pro, which cost a bit of money, and it's been lazy. It's been just hanging around. You've put it to work now for $10, a screen that you already own.
Yes.
You're now making use of. That's great. I have to check this out.
You do have to check it out because I was skeptical. I was like, you know what? Let me try it. Because I was doing a lot of video editing, and I didn't want to be tied to my. Usually, I do all the video editing at this Mac, my iMac, in my office. I'm like, I want to sit downstairs, but I need a separate display. So I tried this thing, and I was skeptical. I was thinking, it's not going to work. It's going to be another waste of money in the App Store, So I tried it anyway, pulled the trigger, and it worked. It just works like a charm.
Nice.
Once you get it set up, it takes a couple seconds to get it set up. Once you get it set up, when you plug in your iPad and push run the display or the Duet app, your Mac sees it and it just shows up as another display. There's nothing to do other than run the app. So yeah, I would give it. If we were doing ratings on this, like All About the Gear, I would give it 2 thumbs up because it's. I think it was well worth the purchase. In fact, I think this type of code or this technology should be included in iOS devices so that when Apple should just do this so that you can use your device as an external display if necessary when you're not using it for something else. It just makes that much sense to do.
Yeah, it makes the device you have already even more valuable.
Yeah.
They can build it in.
Yeah, buy Apple, buy Duet. just do it. just take them over and buy them. So anyway, that is my pick of the week. And guys, we're at the end of the show. The first episode that a emissary from Petapixel has infiltrated This Week in Photo.
Well, we're in every episode anyhow. So.
You're pretty much in every episode. You're like a virus, so it's awesome. Right. It's a good virus, though. It's a very good.
Thanks for that virus reference. what did I ever do to you, man? Come on.
To make up for that, I would suggest to the TWiP Army go over to Petapixel, check them out. So tell us about Petapixel, Sharky. What's so cool about Petapixel?
So Petapixel is essentially the world's largest photography news website, right? So you want to know about new product announcements, cool things, stupid things that people do with their photography, legal matters, everything photography. You want to head on over to petapixel.com. And so, people ask about the name. There's megabyte, there's gigabyte, and then there's petabyte, right? Octabyte.
We're never terabyte in there somewhere, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, terabyte. See, I don't know. There's a lot of bytes. Everyone's biting at it. So, we're never going to see petabyte. So petabyte is a lot of bytes, and it's PETAPIXEL.com, and you'll see the little podcast logo, or you can go to petapixel.com/podcast and check us out. We were actually the first photography podcast allowed in Spotify.
Oh, look at that!
How did we get in there before TWiP? I don't know.
I don't know, because the guy that runs TWiP is falling down on the job. That's why.
No. So a lot of great things have happened in just the 6 months or so that I've been with Petapixel. Look, I'm on TWiP now.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
I had fun.
Yeah, this will be the first of many. I think it's fantastic, and I think that Petapixel and This Week in Photo are complementary in many ways because, like you said, you guys talk about news, or like you break news in some instances, and
we fix it sometimes as well.
And you create news. Yeah, you create controversy. So you guys are on that tangent, and TWiP is more of a punditry type show where we take things that have been released. We're not interested in breaking news for the most part. When we get embargoed press releases, we don't want to talk about the press release on the day that it's announced. We will let Petapixel talk about it, and then we'll talk about it after that because we want to form opinions based on groupthink. So I think it works. It's a good synergistic kind of relationship. So.
And what we do on the podcast, if I can just say really quick, is so I get the news. I had my own podcast before, and then Petapixel said, "Hey, why don't you come over and do it with us?" I was bringing a lot of stories to them. I was like you. I was getting stories from Petapixel, and I wanted to give back, so I gave them a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And they said, "Let's just team up. Your peanuts and my your peanut butter is my chocolate. Your chocolate's and my peanut butter. Let's a lot of old people are gonna get that reference." So let's just team up. So, you've heard me here on the show. I talk about a lot of things. I don't pull any punches. Sorry, GoPro, Nikon, everyone else. And I just call it like I see it. And it's not in a mean way. It's a very, the show is very quick. It's about 22, 25 minutes twice a week. And it's, I think, funny, hopefully, and irreverent a lot of times. But it's not mean. It's all in good fun. If you want to learn about photography news and have a good time, Petapixel Photography Podcast. In addition to TWiP, there's plenty of time for all of us.
Yes, there's more than enough petabytes on your phone
That's right.
to hold all
or
of
in
the
your
data.
arm.
Yeah, pretty soon. Hey, the DNA-driven iPhone will have petabytes of data storage. So, all right, man. Well, so Sharky, the Petapixel Photography Podcast. You said you have a couple books coming out too.
Yeah, I started them about a year ago, and then this thing blew up, so that's been put on the shelf. But I have a couple of photography books in the works, self-publishing, ebooks and that sort of thing, Kindle and all that. And so it's just my take on photography and the how-tos and that sort of thing, but from my perspective. No one else can be me, right? So it's going to be a fun book. It'll be a little bit of comedy, a little bit of learning, and
I love it. You are going to be the Gary Vaynerchuk of photography. That's
awesome.
what's going to happen.
Good. Hear that, Gary V?
Gary V, look out, man. There's a new kid in town. Well, cool, man. Well, welcome to This Week in Photo. It's good to have you on. Hopefully this will be the first of many instances that you will agree to come on to our show.
Dream come true. Hey, I'll be on every episode if you want me.
Hey, there you go. I'm going to turn it over to you. Turn it over to you. All right. Also, Martin Bailey, what about you, man? What's coming up for you?
I'm just finalizing a web page to release and start taking bookings for a Namibia tour next year. I've got my other tours, my Greenland and Iceland and my Japan winter tours, and they're all still running. But as I build out the pages, the tours, everything, it's something that's close to my heart. I've been twice with a good friend of mine, Jeremy Woodhouse, and he's sort of given me the blessing he doesn't want to go back next year, but I do, so he's given me the blessing to go run one on my own. I'm about to start taking bookings, hopefully this week. The pricing's not on. I see that Frederick's looking at the page right now. Mm-hmm. The pricing's not there yet, but it will be by the time this goes live this coming weekend. So people will be able to book if you go to mbp.ac/Namibia and take a look at that.
Very cool.
The other thing, seeing as Sharky's been plugging his podcast, I do podcast myself. I've been doing it longer than both of you.
Longer than TWiP, man. You're like the Morgan Freeman of podcasting.
So I like that. That's actually pretty accurate. Steady, do one every week. I actually managed to podcast all through my tour season over the winter as well, because I was just going crazy at it at the week at home between each tour, and pre-recorded 2 extra episodes. So pretty much every week. And then the other bit of exciting news, and it's totally unphotography related, is I'm going to see Eric Clapton tonight. I'm going to go and watch the legend live here in Tokyo.
Jealous.
So,
Layla.
Yeah, can't wait for this. Been looking forward to it for a few months now. So
very cool. All right, well, let's drag out the show a little bit longer so Martin is late to the show.
It wouldn't happen. I would be just, okay, see you.
You're like, oh, gotta go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right, I have a couple of projects coming up. So speaking at the Out of Chicago conference in June, we'll link to that in the notes for this episode. Also, I'm speaking at the Out of New York conference in October. And at the, I think at the June Out of Chicago, we're going to be debuting, actually coming up in a couple of weeks before that, we're going to be debuting a new product for the TWiP school that has just opened that's going to be exclusive with the 5-day deal. So keep an eye out for that. All kinds of stuff is happening. I'm excited. I just got back from Mexico climbing Mayan ruins and flying drones and getting kicked out of of tourist areas. Apparently, they don't like you flying drones over Mayan pyramids. So
Wow.
yeah, I got exercised from an area that that didn't like that. But I respectfully landed the drone and made my way. But I did have the footage, so that'll be posted online.
So there's that.
There's that. I'm like, oh. You mean what? I don't speak English. I don't speak Spanish. What? Okay, I'll
Hey,
bring it back.
If Trey Ratcliffe can do it over the Forbidden City in China, you can do it over.
I don't
somewhere
want
in
to spend the
Mexico.
night in a Mexican jail, unlike
True.
Trey Ratcliffe.
Good point.
So
Good point.
that's not on my agenda. So yeah, so lots of cool stuff coming. I'm excited for the stuff that's happening with the TWiP school, for being involved with that 5-day deal that's coming up. And also the Out of Chicago conference that we've been mentioning on the show. Really excited for that. Going to be doing some really cool things with them at Out of Chicago and Out of New York.
Well, look at you, Frederick.
Hey, man.
Everywhere. World traveler.
Omnipresent.
I'm stuck in Boise, Idaho.
Hey, you got potatoes, though.
That's
you know?
right.
You
Hey,
have,
carbs are my enemy, my friend.
You have the freshest potatoes that anyone in the United States or otherwise can claim, right?
That's right.
French fries. Spuds.
Sorry, America.
Spuds.
Weight loss brought to you by the state of Idaho.
Love
Or
it.
weight gain, I should say.
We should build a wall. All right.
You had to go there again.
Every episode, I got to get a little zinger in there. All right, guys, we're at the end of another episode of TWiP. I want to thank FreshBooks for their support of the show. Also, be sure to visit our website over at thisweekinphoto.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off.